So Osensei's use of it is tricky because obviously he's Japanese and he references a lot of Shinto in his presentation of things like Misogi and Aikido. But what he, as far as I can tell, is obviously Misogi as more than just standard Japanese. Okay, so let's go. And okay, this is very dense. So the myriad gods and all the wonders they can perform are in fact within each one of us. The divine animates us. We are the universe. Izanagi and Izanami are eternally interacting inside our bodies. So Izanagi, archetypal male, Izanami, archetypal female, okay? And they're both referenced from the Kojiki, okay? We are an integral element of creation. The spirit animating the Kojiki is in our hearts. And apparently what Osensei did is the Kojiki, he used the Kojiki as his formatting of the universe as a creation and also self-consciousness in the universe creation. So he references the Kojiki quite a bit, and that was his thing, okay? And what he's talking about is not necessarily that you have to study that, but on the other hand, it is kind of interesting to study that, but to study him, his consciousness, as he uses the Kojiki, okay? And from here, to practice Aikido is to stand on the floating bridge of heaven. In the practice of Aikido, we can perceive reality. Okay, so in some sense, you know, he kind of indicates there is a divine structure to the universe. And we, coming out of that divine structure, being a part of it, are also divine. Okay? We become like Izanagi and Izanami, bringing all things into being. Now, in the Kojiki, Izanagi, Izanami, as a pair, stood on a place called the Floating Bridge of Heaven, in Japanese, Ame no Ukihashi. And they had a magical spear, which was three-sided going into a point, and they stirred the heavenly brine, and they extended the spear out, and the drops of that brine fell off and congealed into the islands of Japan. And I've always thought, it was my own sense, was that the actual tale there was talking not just about the creation of Japan, but also to some degree, the creation of Japan and that myth, a mirror of the creation of the universe. But the universe itself is not a fixed thing. It's really a creation that's ongoing. And the Izanagi, Izanami, they're kind of like represent the parents of that creation. And since we also come into being as a part of that creation, Izanagi, Izanami, they're coming, they're divine energies. We are also the children of Izanagi, Izanagi. And so that's a lot of Osensei's major rap. And the other thing is that oftentimes in Western religion, in the beginning there was the word was. But here he's referencing that it takes a masculine and a feminine, an Izanagi and an Izanami, for there to be creation. Okay, so it's a little different. Now going forward, we're almost done with this, by the way. You must know your center. Know your center is in the middle of space. Draw yourself as a circle. The circle has the power to give birth to all things. It revolves and revolves. In advanced martial arts, we are taught to never focus on the opponent. To focus on the opponent is to be immediately defeated. Always form a circle that creates life. Okay? And that is a load. Okay, so he is referencing a variety of different levels. For example, he says, you must know your center. Okay, so we oftentimes think of a center as maybe a column post or a point or just a place where we feel more in balance. Okay, but know your center is in the middle of space. Okay, now right now, for example, I'm in the middle of this room and I'm observing social distancing. And I realize that there's a problem going out that you contract a very, very dangerous virus by going out irresponsibly or even going out and behaving pretty responsibly. So there's kind of a risk going out. So I'm kind of confined in this reality. But he says, to re-quote it, know that your center is the middle space. But I'm also here. So a lot of the misogi is shifting your consciousness from the immediate situation into the fact that, okay, your center is in the middle of space. Okay, now this is very interesting, the next one. Draw yourself as a circle. And he is really talking about Izanagi, creating the universe. But he's also referencing know your center, and the center is the middle of space. Then you draw yourself as a circle. To some degree, we create ourselves and we create our own situation by our perception, consciousness of us, which is dependent upon our awareness and consciousness of who we are. Okay? And that's something that the Osensei references quite a bit. He likes the whole term, there's body, okay? But there's another level. The next level is Robert. And the next level after that is Nado. And the level after that is Mr. Nado, okay? And then there's Nado Sensei. And I kind of kid him a lot and said, well, why don't you go to the level of the Nado Osensei? Then you have everything that you wanted. And we laugh about that one. But, that's the dimensional layout. Okay, so what we call I, okay, consciousness, original, but here in matter. Right? We're biological matter, which means we're very complex. We're not just matter, there's matter there. But we're living matter, very complex. And so we are something much vaster. Know your center in the middle of space. Consciousness. But we're in this physical body, in this very physical dimension. Okay? And so we're simultaneously multi-level. And so as we go back to a more original of ourselves, we start to realize, in some sense, we're also standing on that bridge, holding the magic spear to some level. Okay? And the process of going from here to there, to some degree, is what my sense of what Osensei called misogi. And it's something, for example, that we can very easily think, well, I'm going to go and do all this ritual, which is important. Okay, if you like it. Nado Sensei once went up to Osensei and asked him about that. And Osensei just said to him, it was a very honest statement. He said, no, you don't have to do that to understand what Aikido is. I just like that stuff. So he liked it. He did it. And in the ritual practice of misogi or the waterfall practice, there's value. But he's also seen that that was something he liked. So it's a part of the Aikido, all right? But the term misogi, for me, is journey of return. So here I am. And the physical dimension is very limited. Don't bump into things. Things bump into me. Situations come up like the current coronavirus crisis. Everywhere you look, there's limitation. Okay? Now, what he was talking about was, okay, but on the other hand, no, your center. Your center exists in space. Space might be a representation of a more original consciousness. We're not just this. Okay, now you can have that as knowledge here, but he addressed the fact that, dimensionally, as consciousness goes back to its more original, there's more freedom. He says, create yourself as a circle. All right, well, that to me means that we are a creation as the universe is a creation. And to some degree, part of misogi is getting our consciousness back to the more original of ourselves so we can consciously create ourselves. And he talks about create a more beautiful world, create virtue, create all those things. It's very difficult to do, when I keep bumping into things and things keep bumping into me and I keep reacting. That's called I. So as I goes back to its more original, it's freer. All right. One of the things that Nado Sensei kind of likes is the dimensional sense. Is that, like for example, here, I'm going to stand up. All right. All right. I might feel kind of cramped because I've been sitting for a while. But as you kind of settle a bit, you become a bit more present. You kind of notice a little bit the next level kind of floats up. Okay. Settle a little deeper. The next level before it's standing feels breathing more fully. And the standing motion is more fluid. If you settle a little deeper, that there's almost like a deep root that's bringing vital, that allows vital energy. So we tend to, out of our sense perception is here. And then that motion. Now here, this level, I'm starting to pick up circle, counter circle. And settle a little deeper. I was feeling the breathing being a little deeper. Now, all of a sudden, there's that sense when you start to touch the root, there's breath. Breath, of course, the breathing goes in and out, but breath is something that's a bit, it's the background, it's the space for the breathing. And movement off of that. So the dimensional sense, you can use a sit stand, you can raise your arm, you can use some weapons, okay? So what I'm going to do is David, what's the time like right now?
It's 20 minutes past 12.
Okay, that's about right. I just thought what we do is a little bit of that. But something that you can try. Okay, I'm just going to stand up. All right. Settle a little deeper. standing is kind of float up as opposed to I have to stand. And again, I start to, the more you work the dimensional stuff, the quicker the process happens. I'm starting to catch the under root. So each of those, we're using the body because the body exists on dimensional levels. There's a level 1, a level 2, a level 3. But as the body and the motion gets finer, I begins its journey back more to a self. Okay? And I think what Osensei found, for example, he trained his body, martial arts, he did a lot of practice, ritual misogi, meditation, things like that. But as the consciousness gets more back to its more original nature, okay, and and so within that, the Aikido movements, whether you're going to swing a sword or thrust, move. We're going to go into that a little bit when I move into the next room. Okay, so that's what we're going to do right now. But it's good practice. Okay, in other words, so you'll find that the level 1. I mean, you don't bump on a good day, you're okay, but on a bad day, you just bump into things and things bump into you. But you settle a little deeper. As we switch our consciousness, our relationship spatially to things also shift. So in some sense, you can create a better world as you go back, or I go back more towards an original state of I, to self. And Osensei, you reached a level where he was his self was so original, maybe you might say he was standing along with Izanagi in that mythical place, floating bridge of heaven, that the universe came out of. But also, as he said, know your center, then you create yourself as a circle. You are also a creation. And as you get back to the original, it says Izanami created the islands of Japan, symbolically, possibly, the physical universe. And what happens here is we also create ourselves. And as we get back to the more original of ourselves, where we're standing on that bridge with Izanagi and Izanami, then we might, for example, have access to all the magical forces in that heavenly mind that materialize the islands of Japan. Okay, so we're going to move. I'm moving room so we can. Okay, so let me. Okay. So let's shift. David, is it better this way or this way? What's your read?
I like that way better.
This one? Okay. So we will move back a little bit. And I have this, okay? Umbrella will work. A Joe length or a bow length inside is if you can do it, fine, but you may break something. And also restrictions, bang, all right. So this is a short staff, fine. Well, Sensei apparently had a pointer stick he carried with him. And the nice thing, it could be a sword, or it can be a staff, or it could be a spear, okay? So what I thought we'd do a little bit is now right here when I'm gripping right hand, it's a sword form. Okay, level one. Level one. Sword goes up. I raise the sword. I cut. Okay, just tendency on this level because the sword pulls me in. I'm conscious of that and what I'm trying to do with the sword. Right. If you settle a little deeper, level two. Okay. I begin to notice the in-breath, out-breath of my own system coinciding with the cup. Level three. I'm starting to get a feeling of the ground. Boom. Boom. I'm feeling the ground, the up-down of the motion is much freer. Okay? Settle a little deeper, level four, right? Boom. Boom. But we've been using the image of you're sitting on a safe with a chain, that safe drops. Okay, so as that safe, you're sitting on a safe, you're going, ah. When that safe drops, you're going to feel the up. It's not so much you raise, but the whole system is going down. So boom. What about level four? Boom. The two movements become one. They're starting to become one. Boom. Boom. If you go another level, level four is a pretty good one, right? It's a good training level, right? Boom. Boom. About this level, I start to get to where what he's saying, your center is a point in space. So what I'm doing right here is there's that space. I'm not so much into I'm doing this movement or this movement, boom, is doing itself in a good way. But the feeling is there's motion. There's motion. But that space, boom, there's a stillness, boom, boom. So we went about 5 levels. Sorting each out. Okay, this is important. This can also rep 4, the staff. Right side, I was told this in Japan. Right side, right foot, this is sword. I said, do you ever do this? And they said, no. If you're on your left side, you do staff or spear. So for this one, mainly it's a thrusting motion. Boom. Thrusting motion. Okay? And the sword is basically a cutting motion. Up, down, here. Boom. Okay? So the same thing starts. I mean, there are basics. How your feet, how the grip is, you hold from the top and so much underneath. Instead of a tight grip, it's not too loose, but it's okay. Yep. Right now, level 1 thrusts. Right. Boom. Arms go out. Boom. Weight shifts forward. I have a certain sense that it starts from the hip out there with a point. Boom. Boom. And in order for it to start from the hip, I got to have some ground. Boom. I can't beat the hip if I don't have ground. Boom. That's a level 1. Right? Level 2. Boom. Level 2. Boom. I'm starting to pick up a rhythm. Boom. 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 Now, I don't have level 1 and level 2, a little chaotic, so settle in. If you start to go level 2, I get confused. You know, go level 1. Boom, 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 boom. Level 2. Boom. Boom. Almost get the feeling it's kind of like a cannon. Okay. Boom. Shots fired. Continues out there. But the cannon doesn't. And here, the can is jammed. Boom. Okay, so that's a level 2. Settle a little deeper, all right? A level 3. Level 2 has a certain sort of weight or heaviness, which is important. Okay. Level 3, but you got to drag again. Level 3, boom, boom, boom. Beginnings are freer. Boom, 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 boom. Okay? In the comic book movies, the first Iron Man suit was like that. And then Robert Downey Jr. goes back into his lab and creates much more mobile. Stronger armor, boom. 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 He's able to do all these things. Yes, I can fly. Boom. All right? Okay. Just starts to lighten up around level 3. Level 4. Right about there, I get the feeling that Bruce Lee put it this way. He said, it's not so much that I hit, it hits. It hits. All right, so boom, right about here, I should get a thing, boom. It thrusts, my whole system, not so much I thrust, or I'm getting better, but boom. Boom. Right about here, for example, then we start to get the changes. But you can just work the cut, or the thrust, or the dimension of the process. Okay, David, what do we like time-wise?
It's 12:32.
Oh, okay, so we got plenty of time. And what I thought I'd do today, because you're always learning. You're always learning. Okay, and one of the things that I started, I think it was yesterday, you know, because we do, for example, here, first change, thumbs facing each other, second change, thumbs face you, third change, fourth change. Fourth change is kind of like the cannon. Boom, 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 boom. Right? Right? Okay? Wait, not so much. Go to the fire. Okay. Fifth change, thumb in this position, which is very good for what we call the fire-water changes. Thumb down from the top, thumb up from the bottom, thumb down, thumb up, figure 8, thumb up, thumb down. Okay, good. So from here, and I can do the figure 8 without, I'm changing hands, I have to stop and grip. I can. Those are the changes. Now, yesterday, what I started to get, was now left figure 8. Now, what I do with a staff, okay, or this short one, you can work the middle when you're learning the changes initially. Boom, 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 boom. What I kind of want to be able to be here is I want to be like Stephen Curry with a basketball. Boom, 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 boom. Very fluid, very fluid, very fluid. Okay. But right here, the left change. It's very interesting. I just start playing with the left change. Boom, 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 boom. Because I've been mainly right change. Okay. All of a sudden, the left started to come up. Boom, 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 boom. Whoa. So I get a. This is the Japanese samurai movies. You see the blind swordsman films. Okay. Right. which historically, if you're a fan of Zato Ichi, he was at least partially based on Osensei. Because Osensei had sort of this ability to sense things. And so they decided, we'll make a character out of somebody we can't see who. Okay? And his other senses, he's sort of an energy sense for what's happening around him. And Hikizuchi Sensei said that for some of the really early Zato Ichi movies, he accompanied Osensei to Kyoto, where the movies are being filmed. Because Osensei was, first couple was sometimes a kind of a technical advisor. And I have no idea really what he did or whatever it is. But see, for example, here to the left, you get the change here. Boom, boom. You change back to the right. Boom, boom, left. Boom, 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 boom. Now, right about here, for example, you get the third change. Third change. Boom, boom. Just did. The fifth change. And you could boom, drop that. Right? So a lot of this, what you do is you kind of feel. Now, if you go dimensional, level 1 goes and it needs a sequence. Set a little deeper. Level 2, knows the movements a little bit more. Beginning to catch how the movements connect. Level 3, set a little deeper. And movements start to happen. First change. Second change. Third change. Fourth change. Fifth change. Sixth, and now we're back to the figure 8. And we're back to the fire-water changes. Third change. Right? So it's a pick up right about there. Around about the 4th level. The movements start to happen. You're still there. Right? And when you're playing levels, you're go back to the previous one. Learn your changes. First, second, third, second, third, fourth, fifth. Okay. Then go to the second one where they start to interact a little bit. 2, 3 moves at a time. Get to the third change where it starts to kind of flow a bit more. All right. Fourth, once they start to begin to happen. If you know the movements that most people have a set of movements, that still looks good. All of a sudden, you start to be able to first change, second change, third change, change, fifth change, back to the figure eight, fire, water changes. So as you begin to do that, the system frees up. And for that, for example, the less you're referencing at that level, the less your movement with the space. You're seeing or existing in space. And you're constantly forming the circle, creating yourself through the movements. And that might be one way of Osensei's explaining how we stand with Izanagi, Izanami on that floating bridge. Okay? So as it gets freer, you have more fun creating yourself as a circle. This is not Budo, but more like a Stephen Curry behind the back, between the legs. You know, you fun around a little bit. Budo people say that's a bunch of crap, and they're probably correct. But a basketball player, Stephen Curry, do some pretty hot Aikido if he were ever introduced to it. So when you are right about level 5, your point is in space. And that's where you start to create yourself as a circle. And that's where it gets really fun. And so, you know, we're sort of in the coronavirus era right now. And it's very difficult to get to the dojo. In fact, there's no classes going. So you become the dojo. You become the dojo. Okay. And this is my training partner. This becomes my subversion of the magical spear that Izanagi, Izanami held. Izanami, left side, Izanagi, right side. We're standing on that floating bridge, creating now. My center is in space. It's a much more original sense of itself, not so much I. Starts out I, but I clears, goes to the more original of itself. And establishing that point in more original sense of I to self, we start to create ourselves as a circle. The circles get very fun. Okay? So if you've got an umbrella or a short staff, or you have enough room to use a regular staff, go outside in your yard. You can trace all this stuff. I've tried to lay out the process of it. But David, just check in about the time.
Quarter till.
What?
Quarter till 1.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I was going to ask you, do you mind pressing record on this session?
We've been recording since you started.
Okay. But I mean, in terms of actual saving it, I'd be kind of, at some point, like to kind of see it and see what it's kind of like, just the presentation. So,
I'll save the files and put them somewhere for you.
okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. I don't know who's out there, so maybe I'll just press this and we'll see. Oh, hello. Hello. So anybody with a question on, any of this stuff at all? Boom, boom, boom. You got to kind of see what I want you to see. It looks very bright. See, I'm going this way. No, this boom, 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 boom. So it's not just somebody waving the stick out there, but boom, boom, boom. Now that's you wouldn't do that in the martial sequence behind the back or between the legs. It's just that. If you get a chance, again, this is not homework, but go onto YouTube and just on search put "Rising Like the Sun," Stephen Curry, and it's about a half-hour documentary. And it's amazing what those kids in Japan are doing with the basketball. It's amazing. I think Osensei would watch that and say, that's takemusu. And, takemusu aiki is an expression. But takemusu, for Izanagi and Izanami to stand together on that bridge and to create the islands of Japan, there was an attraction of love. And out of that love, the love was a binding force. It took both of them, along with their magic spirit, standing in that mythical place to create the islands, right? Now here, you're standing right side, left side. So you have Izanagi, Izanami in your body, okay? We don't think that, we think I'm learning movement. But right about here, boom, 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 boom. And right about here, you're not necessarily creating the islands of Japan. But when you get to that place where you're not so much an eye doing the movements, but you are that point, the center in space, space representing possibly the more original of I, as self. Self going towards something even more original, a true self, a soul, a spirit, whatever, okay? Then the circle is you creating yourself, just like Izanagi, Izanami. Izanagi, Izanami are in your body. You've got a left and a right. Boom. There's a polarity, up, down, heaven, earth. There's the bridge. Boom. And you're holding the spirit. Boom, 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 boom. And when you're doing regular Aikido, boom, you are the spear is your key. Boom, 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 boom. So, I do a lot of work this way. I always have, because I hear apparently one time, Osensei had a real spear, and you're supposed to be really good with the spear. And somebody said, well, what makes you so good with the spear? And Osensei said, look at your shirt. And it was a sharp spear, so he kind of cut the shirt from, the guy didn't see it. I'm not that good, but see, one of the things about it, by the time you see it, it's already done on the cycle. It's about all I can do. See, in terms of this, the spear, cut as well as penetrate thrust. See, these movements, your thrusting motion is kind of your cannon fire. These movements are just a lot more what I call, but if there's a whole variety of attackers coming in, you've got a sharp tip right here. You come at their own peril. You pick one, boom, you move out of the circle over backwards. So I don't know that Osensei trained precisely this way, but I think he probably did train somewhat like this at some point. You see him do a lot of one-handed figure eight. Right? I picked that one change up because this is the sequence I call it doing. Cut, fire, water, change, back. Third change, here, hands, back to cross. So cut, and you can just repeat that pattern. Simply pattern. I kind of liked it. Establish a point in space. Space is more original of yours, consciousness. Self, soul, spirit. It's your magic spirit. Your left and right, Izanagi, Izanami. Cool. So you're creating yourself as the circle. And that's Aikido movement, Aikido movement, Aikido movement. Oh. Oh. Right? You don't have to, just that motion, that motion, that motion. I try to make them like snowflakes. In other words, no two are exactly alike. Right? You're creating yourself as the circle. That's your point. You so the I, turning back to self. Izanagi, Izanami, right and left. Create yourself as the circle. That's all we're doing here. In Aikido, it's not just a study of forms, it's whether you're visualizing with yourself, partner. David, why don't we open up, see if anybody has any questions? Hope some of you have been moving because it's you can watch it, it doesn't make any sense, but as you start to move, that's where you start to pick it up. So you want to open it up, see if anybody has any questions about anything?
So if you have a question, go ahead and unmute and speak up.
I'll put on the multiple screen thing right here. Yeah, I see somebody moving a stick over there. I like that. See, if you just watch it, you go, huh? But you have to move, right? Good. See, form follows function. But initially, you get crazy about the form, and oftentimes people just get locked into the form, if I have about 3 attackers there, 1, 2, 3, right? If somebody's coming in, I roll underneath, boom, crossed over here, boom, 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 boom. So if you want to, for me, what I'm interested in is the process of creation. If somebody's coming in over there, then we go that motion, that one. Go here, boom. Somebody coming in over there, boom. If you watch the Zatoichi movies, he's like this, and he's picking up, it's like boom, 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 boom. And he has this funny posture where he's kind of like this, but he's tuning in. Okay? And I think that one of the actors who played Daredevil, the blind superhero, he studied the Zatoichi movies. The first one is Ben Affleck, actually, years ago, 2003. All right. And then there's a great series on Netflix before it disappears because it's all going to go Disney at some point. But those are good. But just move. Trust your movement. Most of this stuff. I used to do this for years, and then the Osensei and I were kind of doing some work with the finer energies, and they gave us an assignment. He got, I can't remember his, but he said, okay, take what you do this way and make a form out of it. Just for the practice. So I came up with movement number 1, movement number 2, movement number 3, movement number 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, and 30. And I worked on that for about a year, and they went, So finally, they said, yeah. And I went, oh, okay. So you know, that's we have that 30 movement set. It teaches you change number 1, change number 2, change number 3, change number 4, change number 5. 5 is useful because it gets you into the figure 8. Gets you into the figure 8. The movements 3, 2 are much more flexible. 1 is like the cannon. Boom. It's very heavy artillery. Boom. But even there, boom, it's possible to change. Right? It's a major change. Major change. Major change. And what I do is when I'm holding the short staff, I don't hold it so much in the middle, I hold it more towards the end, because the long end represents the point of the spirit. If I'm holding in the middle, it's real difficult. I lose track. But here, that's a sharp end. 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 So that's what I tend to do. If you got the longer staffs, you just boom, 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 boom. And you can, this can double as sword movement. Boom, 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 boom. So any questions out there? No?
One.
Okay, yeah.
What is the importance of, or what is the relationship between things that you like doing and misogi?
Well, I think at some point, if you really love something, you don't just like, well, you like doing it, that's fine. But you love it. When you're doing something you really love, I mean, not so much, I love something because I'm going to get this or I'm going to get that. Then you are doing a kind of misogi. Okay? You see? Because misogi is basically get you back to a more original place, okay, with yourself. And at that very beginning point in creation, you had Izanagi, Izanami, left, right, masculine, feminine, fire, water, and they stood together as a team to create. Creation came out of love. Therefore, as we are doing that, one thing that if you watch the video I mentioned, Rising, you know, just put Rising as in the sun and Stephen Curry. And the way that Curry puts it is interesting. He's teaching people, you know, a little bit, you know, he goes into, there are first parts about all these people that started doing this stuff, creating this street ball. There's almost nothing to do with what you do with the ball. It's takemusu. They just got a ball. Someone said, well, what do you do when you go home? You don't have a hoop. Well, you start moving. right? And so, in fact, they're better at that stuff than he is. Because that's what they work on. Now, he can do it too, but, you know, he's tied to what works in a game, right? They're just, to use the term, they're just balling, okay? So when you are in something you love, and Craig makes a great statement right at the end. It shifts into where he starts to do camps in Japan. And a lot of them are for women. Somebody said, well, you never do camps for women. So I said, oh my God, yeah, you're right. So, you know, a lot of it, he's working with young women about basketball. And the point he made is this. Basketball may not get you to the NBA, but it will get you somewhere. Because if you love it, I still, a lot of my inspiration for the Aikido comes out, basketball got me to Aikido, really. So the way Curry put it is that you might not get to the NBA, but this will take you somewhere. And again, what Osensei might have said is it takes you from I to your center as that point in space, space being to some degree free, open, empty, but we need to be that way for things like love and inspiration to come in. And then the movements, you're creating yourself as a circle. So so basketball didn't take me to the NBA, but it did take me to something like Aikido. Okay? So anytime you do something that you love, and sometimes it's totally irrational. Why in the world do you love this or that? If you love it for a reason, it's not love. Or the fact that it makes you happy, or it inspires you. That's misogi. Those people that in that video, they do that stuff better than Curry does. But they say one sketches a picture of them. And they draw them with muscles. He says, oh, you drew me with muscles. Thank you. I look like a superhero. And they tell him, you're our superhero. Why? He's the inspiration for them. He taught them about something that they love. Okay? And of course, they love him, sort of, but it's secondary. And he didn't do what he does to just get worshipers. Because he loves basketball, he loves people. So, that's Stephen Curry. All right? So that's a good question. Anybody else with another one? Okay. Don't have to have a question, by the way, but it's kind of, see, any one of these, so you can, for example, see, by the time I go this way, that way, but I can go that way, or that way, that way, that way. Okay. Basketball was interesting. I was really, when I was younger, I really had a lot of speed going back and forth. I get to the hoop before other people. I was younger, I was fast. Okay? But what I really didn't understand was lateral motion. And so on these games, if they put somebody big in front of you, what do you do? But if you go this way, that way, you go this way and set to go, but you go that way. So that's really the changes in the step. I can go that way, I can go that way. I can go that way, I can look that way, pass that way. So everything within basketball teaches you about your field of energy, sharing that field with a couple other energy fields, and you create off of that field. Boom, pass. Movement, step back, shoot. So a lot of times, if I come up with ideas with the staff, I just pretend I'm Stephen Curry playing basketball. And, it's, to me, Osensei said, he said there are many masters of Aikido that don't know the meaning of the word. And what he also said is the people who practice it tend to understand so little of it. because we get so caught up in the form, right? Street ball, as is portrayed in that video, is some of the best takemusu I've ever seen. And if Osensei, I'm almost certain, if you ever saw that video about young Japanese doing that, I think he would smile. And he would just be tickled pink. Because that was him. He was takemusu. Okay. And we get so caught up in the seriousness of the form, that's very serious. But in order to, boom, shed certain things, you kind of loosen up. You've got to just be able to establish yourself as that center in space and create yourself in some sort of circle. And that's really, for me, what I do with the staff. I got a lot of time these days. All right. All right. So, anything else for anybody else on that? Okay.
Sensei, I have a question. It's kind of a basic dumb question, but I'm going to ask it.
Dumb questions are the best, actually.
So when I'm using a bokken or even a shinai back in the day, I know where the blade is on the katana and everything.
Yeah, right.
But when I'm using a jo,
yeah,
I know it's supposed to represent a spear, but since both sides do not have the spear tip, I lose track of where the spear tip is supposed to be. And is that a problem or is that a feature?
No, that's a problem. Okay. I think you came in a little later. What I mentioned is this is shorter. Okay. If you hold it,
I was there for that.
When you're learning the fire water changes, you hold in the middle. But after a while, you hold long end, short end. The long end represents tip, the cutting. Boom, 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 boom. See, I get lost here trying to figure out where the sharp tip is, all right? But when I hold here, the other thing, for example, if you do a lot of this movement with a regular jo, I screwed this shoulder up for about 3 years. And then I screwed this shoulder up for about another 2. Okay? Because doing the torquing with a larger, longer, heavier staff put a lot of strain on this shoulder and then that shoulder. So what I found was with a longer, heavier, you hold not at the center. Or if you do, it's slower. Right? But when you want to pick up speed, you hold with a longer one. And therefore you're not getting this torque, this reverse torque. That's carrying it that way, that's carrying it that way. That's carrying it that way, that's carrying it that way. With a shorter one, boom, boom, see, it allows me, now all of a sudden I can use it, with more of a sword form. Or, does that make any sense, Cliff?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So, just, I like the short, personally. Nado Sensei said that Osensei had a little pointer stick. You see it sometimes. It's not a sword, it's not a staff, it's not a spear, but you carry a little pointer stick with him. But you watch him sometimes, he does some sword moves with it. And then, he's, always doing spear movements with it. And Nado Sensei said, he's coming back to America. He says, somebody told me that I should ask him for that stick. So I can bring it home and meditate with it. And he said, I was too chicken to ask. That's what he put it, right? So, in the Don Juan tradition, Castaneda books, talks about power objects. He said, that would have been a hell of a power object. And the story is, that Terry Dobson sensei, he asked the sensei for his belt. So he gets the belt, and there's so much energy around the belt. He can't take it. This is Terry Dobson. So he takes the belt outside, buries it near us somewhere. So maybe there's a reason why Nado Sensei didn't ask for Sensei for the stick. But it's a power object. Great, great, great! I got the magic stick. Right. So yeah. So anyway, that's anybody else? Did I answer your question, Cliff? I think you'll find that if you'll get a better sense of where the tip is.
So when I'm spinning it, doing like the figure 8 and all that,
Yeah. Here.
Don't do it right in the center, so I know where the
Here.
end
See,
is.
learning fire, water, thumb down, thumb up. I hold in the middle of the page. But then right about here, so you start to do that. You thumb down, thumb up, thumb down, thumb up. It takes a little bit of that. It takes a little bit of practice. Double chain.
Yeah, because it's when I'm spinning that I lose track.
Well, if you have a long end, you know,
Right.
end is the short one. You, for example, certain things I don't want to go here. Well, I learned to move the body. Oh, but so it's practice and blending some of the body turning or the taisa body. So that's one of the challenges. You know, when you don't have a dojo partner, you can learn a lot of that. The other thing is, for example, when you're here, you are in a flow state. And then you do the same thing when you're doing a regular Aikido. The forms of Aikido are supposed to have that magic in it. Izanagi, Izanami, fire, water. So that part of it is for me. That's a lot of what I do, and you can work with a heavier staff, which you kind of find, for example, is as you're doing this. Now, if I work with something a little heavier, it's not a staff, but you know the vibration waves, currents get a little heavier. Even, you know, just doing the actual cutting motion. Boom. See, people hold way too hard. If you go like this, you're actually pulling out of the cut. If you boom, 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 boom. But when I'm doing that, I'm trying to, you know, the energy is circulating off of the movement of the staff. Boom. I want to keep that versatility. Boom. I don't want to get too heavy. Boom. So even though it's a heavier weapon, I'm working still that light, fluid, freedom in the movement. Okay, so as I said, I'm kind of using this as a joke, right? But it is substantially heavier. You got to do a little work with heavy. But one of the real tricks of the trade is, you know, getting pulled into being too heavy. Heavy, boom, 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 boom. I try to be even lighter and freer in the movements when I'm working with something that's heavier. Okay? Anybody else with a question? That was a good question, by the way. Okay?
Sensei,
Sure.
is the process different with the Bokken from the Joe?
Yes and no. The way I would put it, let's go to the Stephen Curry model.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? He does all these drills with the basketball.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, it inspired this whole genre called street ball in Japan. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Fancy, fancy, fancy. But when the Warriors started, when he really started getting noticed, it was about 2015.
Mm-hmm.
They have something called a deadlift, which I wouldn't want to try. Okay? but he could deadlift 400 pounds. And the only guy on the team that could deadlift more than him, and there were some big guys, was this Nigerian guy, Festus Ezeli, who was a monster. The only guy who could deadlift more than Curry. So, for me, there's, you boom. I do this sometimes because it gets you into the heavier dimension. Okay, sometimes you need a cannon. Right. And so, the flows work light, heavy, light, dark, light, heavy. And what I'm saying is, here, when you're doing the fire water changes and the fire changes, the staff is much, or the spear is for me, what Osensei probably trained the most in, but he did work with a sword. Boom. Boom. Okay, and when I'm doing that, I get more what I call substantive. For me, it's the equivalent of Stephen Curry lifting weights.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you see what I mean? In other words, Bruce Lee knew enough not to lift weights and get bulky, but he did lift weights.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the Subhuti practice is more like the Aikido equivalent of weightlifting. You see, I mean, if you're a pitcher, you don't lift heavy. Hitters do because you're going, you gotta go that way. When you go, you gotta do that. Now, never did. Worked almost entirely with a bat. He did certain Aikido centering movements. Okay, and he cut with a sword. He didn't do a lot of the weight stuff, and he credited his abilities in baseball to his understanding of Aikido. Okay, but he did certain things like he cut through bamboo and everything like that. So he had certain tangible physical things. If you just want to burn off steam, then take the bokken, and just cut. All right, and the thing about it is don't count. Boom, just keep cutting. Boom, 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 boom. And just keep going. Wow. And when you say, if you do that, you will burn off a lot of crazy energy. And in the process, if you check your body, what I always do when I do a period of that, I go on to the lighter movements.
Mm-hmm.
Find it if you just go like that, people that way, they get too heavy. One of the conversations I had with Robert Nadeau yesterday, one of his longtime students studied with a Tai Chi master, Cheng Man Cheng. And most things, they work on the point here. You get the point heavier, you get thicker, you get stronger. And Cheng said, no. You work the up, down, up, boom. Mm-hmm. Okay? And my Tai Chi master, Master Choi Kong Man, he told me pretty much the same thing. He just said a lot of people work at kind of, developing the chi in the body. And they get thicker and stronger. But the way that Master Choi put it, he said, his truth was that you didn't do that. You didn't develop your chi in the body. He said, boom, 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 boom. Okay? In other words, as you boom, you establish a relationship with the chi, boom, and that, the chi moves you. Or you create yourself, once you establish that center in space, I, to some level of self, boom, what happens is, that's what happens, boom, then boom. You're fluid, boom, 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 boom. So if you use the striking form, or if we go back to, the staff, it's, But there's a place, and I'm not sure I'm still working on, where that looks like a light movement. Boom. And boom, it's very powerful. Tochima Sensei would cut like that. And one time, somebody had an attitude, like, I'm better than you guys. You Japanese, what do you know? I'm a big American that's sophisticated. I know a lot more than you guys, you hips in the country do. And so he tells this guy, get a bokken, and says, grip it as hard as you can. And he took a bokken, and he said, I'm going to knock that out of your hand. You're not going to feel a thing. And this guy just said, truth, these guys don't know anything. So he goes this way, and he closes his eyes so he can't be hypnotized. Okay, and Tochima Sensei takes his bokken, goes like this, goes like that. Did not tense, nothing, and went boom. And what was interesting about it was he not only knocks the bokken out of the guy's hand, but he breaks the sword in two. Wood cutting through wood. The top half of the guy's bokken went all the way up and hit the ceiling of the dojo and bounced down. And the hand, the bottom half, hit the mat and bounced up where it almost touched the ceiling and then came down. And the guy was like this. He thought he was still holding the sword with his eyes closed. And so after that, this guy comes up to me and says, hey, Jack, I think that guy, meaning Tochima Sensei, talks a lot. I didn't have a lot of respect for that guy because he mouths off a lot. He said, but I'll tell you one thing, I didn't feel a thing. So, if Tochima Sensei had put a lot of, he would have maybe knocked the sword down. But Tochima Sensei just, boom, just did that. So there's a certain sort of mysterious power, because people say ki, there's a, Osensei called ki no myoyo, the miraculous functioning and aspects of ki. That's what Osensei had. And that was something, you stand on that floating bridge with Izanagi, Izanami, you position there with the point, not a point in the world of weight, but in space, where there's no self. You create yourself as a circle. You're creating yourself, you're also creating your own environment. But he said, just create a beautiful world. He wasn't talking about, going up and cleaning litter, although that would be good. One thing about the coronavirus is that the environment is getting better. There's less pollution. It's really, it's not necessarily, the best thing, right? But, the fact is when there are less cars and less like social then everything starts to have a balance to it. Okay, so that's the kind of what we call the silver lining to it.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be nice if we got a certain sense where we could do that a little bit more, without the crisis. But we create our own, we create our own world. How does that, what the docents said he was going to work on today? Because you can learn to stand better, or you can learn to swing the sword better, or move the staff better. The one thing that he's saying is that, okay, this is the center, it's a point in space. It's not something I'm going to get better at the center to swing the sword better or harder or faster. Yeah. And then you start to create yourself as a circle. It's not just your body, but your world, your realm, your environment situation. So that's something that I think is important for us to, because we go back more towards the original of Osensei's teaching. He was giving us technology. Right now, the world, the way he put it there is that too much attention in the outer world, in the mechanical world, That's why I said, go back to more what he called the spirit, to base the world more upon the original design. Izanagi, Izanami, or spirits. They're energies. They're not, in some sense, physical. Okay? And to stand with Izanagi, Izanami in that sacred place is not to stand there as a body. Returning the body so that the I learns to, as a body, gets more original with itself. It starts to feel itself more as energy, finer energy, more original energy. The movements become easier, freer. And off of that, then what happens is that the I returns to self. And at that level, if you have Izanagi, Izanami as your parents, in the Superman mythos, right? He has earthly parents, Jonathan and Martha Kent. Okay, they're farmers. But he has celestial parents, Jor-El and Lara. Jor-El. And so he comes from the stars, and so he's Superman. He's kind of he has his earthly parents, and he has his God parents, right? And so if we were standing there kind of on that bridge, as a child or as another, as a presence, as a self, as a soul, spirit, along with Izanagi, Izanami, then our actual the circle we create is universal. And that was, I think, what Osensei was trying to get. And then things like Izanagi, Izanami, they don't create, but there is this binding, attractive force called love. Okay? And so getting to that original place where everything came out of that love, then you're going to create peace. You're going to create beauty. You see, there's nothing else you can create there. But then as we go into a journey from all that, God, Goddesshood, into I in physical matter, there's all this strife and conflict, limitation. So Sensei was saying the journey back, to sort of like paraphrase Star Trek, to boldly go where no one has gone before. Well, Sensei went there. He traveled the universe, not in a spaceship. And his prime directive was get back to that original place, stand as an original spirit, soul, with parent energies, Izanagi, Izanami, in that place of creation, the floating bridge, and learn to create as you are forming the circle around you, something that is beautiful and balanced. And if we can do that, then we'll survive the coronavirus and everything will be better for it. If we don't learn that lesson, there'll be another one. And maybe, the point is to not handle things like that. The point is to create the world so that we don't have those, that we're in harmony with nature. Coronavirus is nature saying, look, notice me. You guys are so technologically advanced. You think you could ignore me, but you can't. And so nature's saying, and so here we are. So anyway, I think that's, anybody else with a question?
Thank you, Sensei.
Okay, all right. So David, I think if you would somehow save this one, I'd like to kind of see what it's like. Okay? David? Okay. So.
Yes, I'm saving it, and I'll get in touch with you in a few minutes.
Yeah, all right. Okay, well, thank you. I'm gonna sign out. Take care.
Thank you, Sensei. Have a good day.